Good morning, Army. It's Heidi Allen, founder of the Positive People Army. Hello, I hope you're all well today on this gorgeous Thursday. Well, it's a little gloomy outside, but we don't look at it that way because we are very positive and it's a fabulous day. Of course, driving into work, my lovely husband Mike is driving me in. Hey. There he is. Oh my God, he's so cute. So I want to talk to you guys today about, I'm going to actually tell you a story. And why I'm going to tell you this story is because recently I've had a lot of conversations with Army members about things that they're going through. Either they're getting frustrated that their dreams are not coming to fruition, or they're going through a lot of pain, or there's just a lot of things happening in their lives. And I constantly tell everyone, when you lean into it and you let go, the signs and the answers will come to you. And they really do. See, my entire life, I've always believed in signs or coincidences. Those moments where all of a sudden you're having that conversation with someone and it's exactly what you needed to hear. Or you go in the newsfeed of the Army and there is a post there and you're like, I needed to hear that in that moment. These are coincidences and these are signs. These are things that are guiding us. So I'm going to tell you a story, a very personal story of when these signs became very clear to me. So like I said, I've always believed in them. And so this one particular day, I walked down, it was a Sunday. There's this really wonderful used bookstore on the Danforth in Toronto. It's called Press. And my husband and I walked down there. And while I was in there, because I love to pick up old books, I found this book called When God Winks. And it's by a man named Squire Rushnell. Now, I never called them God winks before. I'd always called them universal winks. I'd always had that phrase. So of course, seeing When God Winks, it really intrigued me. So I opened up the book and I read the bio on Mr. Squire Rushnell. And this particular man had always worked in television. He had worked for NBC and he'd had like a spiritual awakening, a breakdown which turned into an awakening. So for me, this was the first sign. See, I work in television, and about a year and a half, as most of you know, I had my spiritual breakdown, and my spiritual breakthrough was the Army. So I felt, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to read this book. There is a sign. Now, a very subtle one. See, that's the thing. Sometimes, Army, these signs are so subtle. So I picked up the book, and it headed down to Cuba with me this past April. So I went down, I read the entire book. I sat on a lounge chair, I read this book, cover to cover. It talked so much about these subtle signs in your work life, in your love life, in just life in general, all of these coincidences and signs, and how we have to very specifically ask for them, but we need to pay attention when we do. So the morning we were set to leave, we were leaving not until later in the day, I sat on the end of my bed and I thought, you know what, I'm going to put this to use. I'm going to sit and I am going to ask. I'm going to ask for my God winks, my universal winks. Please tell me, is my journey with the Army my destiny? I want you to scream at me and tell me. And then I walked out and enjoyed the rest of my day. Now, 1 hour before we were supposed to leave the resort, I received my first wink. See, what happened 1 hour before is the heavens opened and a torrential downpour occurred. Now, why this all of a sudden was a wink is because exactly 1 year to the date, I had also been in Cuba and I was leaving on that day, and 1 hour before we left, a torrential downpour occurred. Now, of course, this is a very subtle wink, Army, a very subtle one. And it could have been I could have missed this one because it was so subtle. Like it was a memory that popped into my head that 1 year before this exact same thing had happened. So in that moment, I looked up and I said, thank you. Now, we continued on to the airport. We got on the plane. We took off. About an hour in, I'm watching a movie. I have my headphones in. I'm watching a movie. It was time for my second wink. While I was watching the movie, the flight attendant came on and said, could the Squire family please make themselves available to us? Now, if you remember, Army, the author of the book that I had just read was Squire Rushnell. So again, another very subtle wink. but I was listening. I looked up and I said, thank you. Now, my winks were not over for this day. I was going to be told that this was my destiny. We arrived in Toronto. You know, now you go through customs, you just put your little form in, spits it out, and off you go. You get your luggage, you're done. Well, my husband and I were told we had to go and speak to customs. We had no idea why, so we went over to customs. There were 2 custom officials there. One was on the computer, one was asking questions. They asked us question after question after question. We had no idea what was going on. And all of a sudden, one of the customs officials said, can you spell the street that you live on in Toronto? So I spelled the street. The second customs official looked up at me and said, are you kidding me? I lived on that exact street when I grew up. Now, I do not live on a main street in Toronto. And as you know, Toronto is a very large city. There was now not a very subtle wink. That was a in my face, oh my God, a coincidence, a wink. Again, I stood there and said thank you. Now, the next one, Army's gonna kind of blow your mind. After about 45 minutes that we were with customs, they said we could go, but they didn't tell us anything. So we said, well, my gosh, like why on earth had you detained us for 45 minutes? The customs official looked at us and said, well, you see, there is a wanted criminal with the exact name and birth date as your husband. Okay, now when I say this is awe-inspiring, this is pretty awe-inspiring. Come on, the same name and birth date as my husband? This was a large slap in the face wink. I looked up, not only said thank you, but tears strolling down my eyes. I enthusiastically said thank you. So see, Army, the signs, the winks, they're all there. If you want to be guided, you need to ask. You need to let go of everything that's going on in your head, all that negative talk, the frustration because your dream hasn't come to fruition yet, all of that. Let it go and then ask. The signs will be there. The guidance will be there for you, but you need to pay attention. All those little tiny things, start writing them down. All those feelings that you get inside of you, those coincidences, those moments, write them down, keep track of them. They are there. All you have to do is ask. Have a great day, Army. I really hope you like my story. Bye, guys.